And then they came for Captain Underpants, and I can't believe that's actually a statement I have to make
unironically.
Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber, and Winnie the Westie is taking his early day nap in the car. A story I never thought I would ever have to break to the world. They have come for Captain Underpants.
What? No. No! No!
And for those of you who may have no idea what I'm talking about, the latest victim of cancel culture is
Captain Underpants.
Actually, I should be a little more specific than that. I don't want anyone writing me off as fake news. The fact checkers have been working overtime in order to tackle the really hard stories, and it turns out that no, Captain Underpants has not been canceled. It was a spin-off book that has been canceled. No, Captain Underpants has not been canceled. Spin-off book pulled instead. Now remember what I always say about fact checks. When they start off with an affirmation, yes or no, followed by a statement, in my humble experience, typically they are getting ready to mislead you, and I don't think this case is any different. I think they are getting ready to mislead you because they're creating a distinction without a difference. Although social media would have you thinking otherwise, Captain Underpants has not been cancelled. Phew, thank you for doing the Lord's work, fact checker. Perhaps this story is then going to be less absurd than we initially thought it was. Spoiler alert.
No, it's not going to be any less absurd.
Instead, another book by the same author, Vlawg, has been pulled by the publisher. The Adventures of Ook and Gluk, Kung Fu Cavemen from the Future, is a spin-off from the original Captain Underpants. Similarly, they are both graphic novels with recognizable drawing style. The book's publisher, Scholastic, released a statement about the 2010 novel. Quote, "Together we recognize that this book perpetuates passive racism. We are deeply sorry for this serious mistake," end quote, the company said. So no, you foolish and gullible consumers of fake news. It wasn't Captain Underpants that was cancelled, and you were stupid for having thought it was. It was a spin-off book, Ook and Gluk. As if that makes this entire story any less ridiculous. And also keep this in mind, this novel is from 2010. It is over a decade old, and it is only now that Scholastic is realizing that it contains something called passive racism in it? And wait until you see what the alleged passive racism is. Quote, "Scholastic has removed the book from our websites, stopped fulfillment of any orders domestically or abroad, contacted our retail partners to explain why this book is no longer available, and sought a return of all inventory. We will take steps to inform schools and libraries who may still have this title in circulation of our decision to withdraw it from publication," end quote. Now, I'm not saying this to be facetious, and there is no but about it. Reading this, you would think that they are recalling a car that was having systematic brake failure or spontaneously exploding on the streets. You would think that they are talking about hazardous materials that need to be seized and properly disposed of, not a kid's book about cavemen who travel from the past to the future to learn kung fu to save the universe. I don't know how else to say it, ladies and gentlemen. We are living through full idiocracy. And now that the real news fact checkers fact-checking the serious facts have clarified that this is not a cancellation of Captain Underpants, but a spin-off book, Ook and Gluk, let's read an article on the subject. From The Guardian, Captain Underpants author withdraws book over, quote, passive racism, end quote. Publisher Scholastic says it will no longer distribute the Adventures of Ook and Gluk, Kung Fu Cavemen from the Future. Captain Underpants author Vlawg has apologized for, quote, harmful racial stereotypes and passively racist imagery, end quote, in one of his graphic novels for children, which has been withdrawn by his publisher amid a surge in anti-Asian violence in the US. Now, we are going to come back to this concept of harmful racial stereotypes and passive racism, but first let's just read the actual plotline from the book. The Adventures of Ook and Gluk, Kung Fu Cavemen from the Future, first published in 2010, follows two cavemen who travel to the year 2222 and meet Master Wong, a martial arts instructor. Last week, publisher Scholastic announced that it would stop distributing the book and remove all mention of it from its website, saying it had, quote, the full support, end quote, of Pilkey. Quote, together we recognize that this book perpetuates passive racism, end quote, Scholastic said. Quote, we are deeply sorry for this mistake, end quote. The author, Pilkey, then went to his YouTube channel to post an apology, and we have to read through this apology. Hi everyone, I'm Pilkey. About 10 years ago, I created a book about a group of friends who saved the world using Kung Fu and the principles found in Chinese philosophy. The Adventures of Ook and Gluk, Kung Fu Cavemen from the Future was intended to showcase diversity, equality, and non-violent conflict resolution. Pilkey's book was intended to celebrate diversity, equality, non-violent conflict resolutions, and celebrate the principles of Chinese philosophy, but this week he found out he was in fact racist. But this week it was brought to my attention that this book also contains harmful racial stereotypes and passively racist imagery. I wanted to take this opportunity to publicly apologize for this. And yes, I made a mistake reading it the first time, which is why I had to redo this inside while editing. I'm making a vlog. Will you leave me alone? It was and is wrong and harmful to my Asian readers, friends, and family, and to all Asian people. My publisher Scholastic has stepped forward to share my responsibility, and together we are ceasing all further publication of the adventures of Ook and Gluk, Cavemen from the Future, and actively working to remove existing copies from retail and library shelves. I hope that you, my readers, will forgive me and learn from my mistake that even unintentional and passive stereotypes and racism is harmful to everyone. I apologize and I pledge to do better. Sincerely, Dav Pilkey. P.S. My wife and I pledge to donate all of my advance and royalties from the sale of the adventures of Ook and Gluk, Kung Fu Cavemen from the Future to charities that provide free books, art supplies, and theater for children in underserved communities. Organizations that promote diversity in children's books by publishing, and organizations designed to stop Asian hatred. These non-profit charities include We Need Diverse Books, the AAPI, and Theater Works USA, among others. Now, if you are anything like me, you have actually not read The Adventures of Ook and Gluk, and you have no idea what these allegedly passive racist images were, so you had to go online, find some of the images, and decide for yourself, and here is one of those images. From an article in the Daily Mail, Scholastic, the world's largest publisher of educational books for children, will no longer distribute The Adventures of Ook and Gluk, Kung Fu Cavemen from the Future, because it, quote, perpetuates passive racism, end quote, against Asians. The most problematic illustrations in the book cited by critics were of a, quote, Kung Fu master, end quote, not sure why they're putting that in quotes, wearing traditional Asian garb. The plot features a Kung Fu master rescued by the book's non-Asian protagonists using their Kung Fu skills. So the offensive racial stereotyping, the passive racism in the book was the Kung Fu master wearing traditional Asian garb.
The Kung Fu master wearing traditional Asian garb.
Perhaps it's time for a brief history lesson for cancel culture. Chinese martial arts, often named under the umbrella terms Kung Fu, Kuoshu, or Wushu, are several hundred fighting styles that have developed over the centuries in China. These fighting styles are often classified according to common traits identified as, quote, families, end quote, of martial arts. Examples of such traits include Shaolin Quan physical exercises involving 5 animals mimicry or training methods inspired by old Chinese philosophies, religions, and legends. Styles that focus on Qi manipulation are called internal, while others that concentrate on improving muscle and cardiovascular fitness are called external. Geographical association, as in northern and southern, is another popular classification method. Let that sink in for just a second. The alleged racist imagery, the passive racism in Ook and Gluk, Cavemen from the Future, is that they are learning Kung Fu from a Kung Fu master who is depicted as being Asian and wearing traditional Asian garb while teaching Kung Fu, the practice that has been developed over the centuries in China. When you think about it for a second, you will realize the absolute absurdity of the situation is that the only way to avoid alleged passive racism would be to either not have this character in a book or to depict this character as not having certain Asian attributes. Now, I know some of you out there are saying the Asian garb is not necessarily an Asian attribute, but I can safely say to anybody out there, if you have ever taken any martial arts, you will know that the sensei typically dresses a certain way. It is not racism, it is showing respect to the history and the culture. So the only way to avoid this allegedly racist imagery and passive racism is simply to not have Asian characters in the book in the first place, and
That sounds a little racist to me.
or even worse, if you have Asian characters in the book, to not depict them with Asian features, to whitewash their features, pun intended.
That sounds even more racist to me.
Or you have a non-Asian Kung Fu master, in which case you're going to face accusations of cultural appropriation. There is literally no way to win when all you do is see the world through these identity politics blinders. It is not racist to pay tribute to the most valuable elements and history of a culture. It is not racist in a cartoon or comic book to depict certain races with identifiable features of that race. In fact, it would be racist not to. What are you gonna do? Have a Kung Fu master who is in fact Asian and depict him with non-Asian features? As if there's something wrong with having Asian features? Let that sink in as well. Everybody who says that that image is offensive says that there is something wrong with having Asian features. And if it was racist to depict the Kung Fu master who was in fact Asian in this book with Asian features, why is it not racist to depict the black character with black features? Now, I didn't know who was who, so I had to look it up, and I'm pretty sure that Ook Shadowski is the white character and Gluk Jones is the black character. And let's look at the depiction of the character for Gluk Jones. He is a black character, and he seems to have curly black hair, what some might even call an afro. Perhaps it's a question only of the Asian garb being worn by the Kung Fu master, in which case one can say that these situations are not entirely equal. To which I might then respond, if Gluk Jones was intended to be a Maasai soldier celebrating the principles of the Maasai culture, I would expect him to be wearing the Maasai garb. In fact, I think it would be far more racist and far more offensive if they were not wearing the traditional garb of the culture they are intending to celebrate. As if to say that there is something fundamentally offensive or inherently racist racist about wearing the garb of that culture. There is the old maxim that offense is taken and not given, and I came up with a variation this morning which I think is also pretty good, that being offended proves an emotion. It doesn't prove an argument. If anyone is offended by literally pictures in a kid's book that are intended to celebrate a culture and not mock it,
The problem lies in that person and not in the book.
and the consequences of that kind of feigned outrage are actually far worse than the book itself, because what you end up having is a world where people will simply not celebrate these characters in the first place. You will literally the dog is falling down. You will literally end up with books that are absolutely monolithic, that do not celebrate the cultures of others, and that is far more racist than anything anyone was objecting to in the first place. And I can't believe I had to do an entire vlog on the cancellation of Captain Underpants, or I should say thanks to the fact checkers, Ook and Gluk, cavemen from the future. The world has seemingly gone mad, and sometimes when the world has gone mad, all that people can do is restate the obvious, paraphrasing very poorly from George Orwell. And with that said, if you like my videos and you like my content, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm. If you want to support the channel, all of these support links are in the pinned comment. We've got PayPal, Patreon, Subscribestar, YouTube membership. We've got merch. Keep calm and vlog on. Robert Barnes and I do weekly live streams every Sunday. We do weekly streams with a guest every Wednesday called The Sidebar. Robert Barnes and I are on Locals, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where supporters get exclusive content. But more important than any of that, take care of yourselves, check in on friends and family, make sure everyone around you is doing well, have a sense of humor in life, and now you know your vlog. Peace out.